Leon Hartley had a rule: no one entered the 12th floor. Ever. It was his private penthouse above the glass towers of HeartTech, isolated from the chaos of New York City. No assistants, no guards, no distractions, only silence, his thoughts, and a view of the skyline that matched the cold emptiness inside him. He had just stepped out of the shower, steam curled around his shoulders, a silk bathrobe clung loosely to his frame. He reached for his towel and heard the door open behind him. "Sir, I was told this room was—" The voice stopped. Leon turned. A girl stood in the doorway, wide-eyed, frozen like a deer in headlights. She wore a faded cleaning uniform and carried a metal cart stacked with sprays and cloths. Her badge read, Maya L. Facilities. Before he could speak, she gasped, backed away, and stepped on the edge of a towel. The robe loosened and dropped. Silence. Her eyes widened in horror. She turned around and crashed into the doorframe. "I am so sorry, sir. I thought this was an empty suite. Please, please don't fire me." Leon said nothing. He picked up the robe, tied it slowly, and studied her. Not in anger, not in confusion, something else. He had seen 1,000 women, models, executives, actresses. None of them made his heart skip. None of them made him forget the numbers running through his mind. But this girl with nervous hands and flushed cheeks? She had. The silence stretched. Behind her, a guard rushed in. "Sir, we are so sorry. She is new. This will not happen again." Leon raised a hand, still looking at her. "She stays." The guard blinked. "Sir?" "She stays. Assign her to clean this floor only, daily, personally." Maya's mouth opened, but no words came out. Leon turned away, walked to the window, and said with finality, "That will be all." The door closed behind her. For the first time in years, Leon felt something he could not calculate, not logic, not strategy. It was instinct, and it had just walked into his life by mistake. Leon Hartley was not just a billionaire. He was the billionaire. At 30, he was the youngest self-made tech mogul on Forbes' top 10 list. Founder and CEO of HeartTech, the company that revolutionized global logistics with artificial intelligence, Leon was a name that turned heads in every boardroom. But despite his wealth and power, Leon remained a mystery. Cold, calculated, unreachable. He attended galas but never danced. He signed billion-dollar deals but never smiled for the cameras. Rumors floated constantly that he hated women, that he was married to his work, that he had a past so painful it had frozen him in time. But Leon did not care what the world thought. He had built everything from the ground up, beginning with nothing but a cot in a foster home and a scholarship he fought 10 others to win. His only weakness, if he had one, was privacy. That was why the 12th floor of HeartTech was off limits, until her. Maya Lopez was 23. Her mornings began before sunrise and ended long after midnight. She worked part-time as a janitor in multiple buildings across the city, including HeartTech headquarters. Her other hours were spent delivering groceries, tutoring local kids in science, and taking care of her mother, who had been in and out of hospitals since Maya was 17. She was smart, observant, and careful. She memorized floor plans and stuck to cleaning schedules. She never lingered or touched anything unnecessary. She never asked questions. Her only goal was to work, earn enough to pay the next bill, and move one step closer to medical school. But that day, someone gave her the wrong room number. The moment she pulled open the door, saw the steam, and heard the silence, her instincts screamed at her to run. But by then, it was too late. She had looked directly at Leon Hartley, and worse, she had pulled down his robe. The news spread through the building in whispers. Everyone expected her to be fired immediately. No one got away with breaching Leon's space. But the opposite happened. He requested her, by name. From that point on, Maya was assigned exclusively to the 12th floor. She would clean his suite every evening when he returned from work. She would polish the glass tables, vacuum the hand-woven rugs, restock the bar with still water and nothing else. She tried to avoid him. She even requested to be transferred to a different building, but HR replied with a firm denied. Her supervisor advised her to stay quiet and do her job. When she asked why, the woman simply said, "Because if Mr. Hartley wants you there, you go." Maya did her best to pretend he was invisible. She avoided eye contact, focused on her tasks, and timed her exits to avoid running into him. But Leon made that impossible. He began working from the suite more often, sometimes in silence, sometimes pretending to be on the phone while watching her from the corner of his eye. Once, when she dropped a spray bottle, he picked it up before she could. "You are left-handed," he said casually, placing it back in her cart. "Your grip's weaker on the right." She blinked. I guess so." He nodded. "Try switching hands for better control." That was all. But it haunted her for days. He remembered tiny details, observed everything, and yet he never made her feel small or threatened, just watched, as if trying to solve a puzzle. One night, as she wiped the windows, she noticed a framed photo on his bookshelf. It was the only personal item in the entire suite. A boy, maybe 10 years old, standing alone on a snow-covered street. No smile, just tired eyes. The edges of the photo were worn, as if it had been carried for years. She did not ask. She never would. But deep down, something about that boy felt familiar. A week later, she found herself waiting 5 minutes after finishing her shift, unsure why. Her bag was packed, her coat was on, but she stood by the elevator, frozen, as if expecting something to happen. The door behind her opened. Leon stepped out. "You forgot your badge," he said, holding it out. "Thank you," she said quietly, reaching for it. Their fingers brushed. It was nothing, a moment, a flicker. But in the silence that followed, something shifted, and neither of them spoke as the elevator closed between them. The 12th floor became her routine. Every night after 9, Maya would step into the silent corridor, swipe her badge, and let the heavy glass doors slide open with a soft hiss. She moved quickly, wiping surfaces, refilling supplies, and keeping her gaze low. Most nights, Leon was there, seated behind his massive black desk, reviewing projections or speaking softly into a phone. He never addressed her directly, never asked unnecessary questions, but she could feel the air change whenever she entered. It wasn't fear exactly, but something thicker, more electric, as if the room itself held its breath until she left. One Thursday evening, the silence was broken. Maya arrived to find Leon pacing. His phone was on speaker and someone was shouting through it. The words were about stocks, delays, incompetence. Leon's face was unreadable, but his voice, when it finally came, was cold enough to slice glass. He ended the call without looking at her, walked to the kitchen area, and stood still. Maya hesitated. Normally she would begin by tidying the living space, but something in his posture made her pause. "Do you cook?" he asked suddenly, still facing away. She blinked. "Sorry?" He turned. "You're fast with your hands. Efficient. You've replaced the bar stock correctly every day since the first. You care about order. That usually means you know your way around a kitchen." She stared at him, unsure whether it was a compliment or an evaluation. "I do some cooking at home," she said slowly, "mostly for my mom." Leon nodded. Then, to her shock, he opened the refrigerator, pulled out ingredients, and said, "Help me." It wasn't a request. They cooked together, awkwardly at first. He chopped with mechanical precision. She stirred without thinking. The kitchen, sleek and untouched until then, began to feel human. Leon moved deliberately, watching her. When she asked why he had a full kitchen but never used it, he replied, "I don't eat here. I work here." But that night, they shared a meal. Nothing fancy: grilled chicken, sautéed vegetables, jasmine rice, but the silence between bites felt different, softer, familiar. After she cleaned up and prepared to leave, Leon said something that stopped her. "Have dinner here tomorrow too, if you're available." She didn't answer right away. Her chest tightened. The line between employer and employee was blurring, and she didn't know how to draw it back. "I have another shift," she said. He nodded once, then another time. The next day, a call came from HR. Her schedule had been adjusted. All evening duties except Heart Tech had been removed. No explanation, no option to refuse. She felt the walls close in. She went to her supervisor, demanded to know what was happening. The woman looked tired, almost sympathetic. "Don't fight it," she said. "People who argue with the top don't last long." Maya clenched her jaw. "I never asked for any of this." "I know," the supervisor said gently, "but he did." Maya returned to the 12th floor that night with her heart pounding. Leon was waiting. "I hope the new schedule works better," he said without irony. "You changed it," she replied flatly. "I optimized it," he corrected. "You needed more stability. This arrangement benefits you." "It benefits you," she shot back. "You didn't even ask." He studied her. "Would you have said yes?" "No." He smiled faintly. "Then I was right not to." That answer made her furious. She finished her tasks in silence, refused to meet his eyes, and left without another word. But the next evening, she returned. Again and again. Something unspoken had formed between them, fragile and confusing. They began to speak more. Small things. He asked about her mother. She asked about his company. He taught her how to use the smart glass interface. She noticed he had a habit of rubbing his left wrist when stressed. But not everyone was blind. In the executive lounges, in the lower offices, people whispered, "That cleaning girl, she's been here a while, hasn't she? Mr. Hartley's been different lately, hasn't he? Did you see the way he looked at her?" Then the rumors turned ugly. One evening, as Maya passed the reception desk, she found a small envelope, taped to her cart. Inside was a photo, blurry but clear enough. It showed her standing next to Leon on the 12th floor balcony, both of them laughing. She didn't remember the moment, but the image was real. On the back, someone had written, "Sleeping your way up?" Her hands trembled. She crumpled the photo and threw it away, but the words clung to her. That night, she scrubbed harder, moved faster, barely glanced at Leon when he spoke. He noticed, of course. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing," she lied. He stood. "Tell me." She shook her head. "It doesn't matter." He walked toward her, stopping only when they were a breath apart. His voice was low. "It matters if someone hurt you." She looked up, eyes flashing. "You hurt me." That caught him off guard. "How?" "You control everything," she said. "My schedule, my space, my time. I never asked for any of this. I don't want dinners. I don't want special treatment. I want my life back." He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, almost quietly, "I'm sorry." She hadn't expected that, not from him. "You don't owe me anything," she added. "I know," he said, and yet the next day she found her original schedule reinstated. No explanation, no comment, just a silent gesture. But it was already too late. The story had started writing itself, and neither of them could stop it now. Maya kept her distance after that night. She spoke only when necessary, kept her tone neutral, and refused to linger. She finished her tasks with clinical precision and left without waiting for the elevator to ding fully open. She didn't ask about schedules, didn't question the reinstatement, and made no effort to look at Leon when he was near. Leon, for his part, remained quiet. He didn't try to change her schedule again. He didn't ask her to stay for dinner, but every evening he was still there, working, waiting. The silence between them grew heavier, not awkward, not cold, just heavy. Like something was waiting to be said, but neither of them dared to say it. One night it rained hard. New York's lights blurred behind the storm, casting the 12th floor in pale flickers. Maya was late. The subway stalled, and she arrived soaked, her uniform clinging to her skin. She stepped into the suite, already apologizing. "I'm sorry. There was flooding on the line." Leon looked up from his desk. His eyes scanned her quickly, then landed on her dripping shoes. "Take those off," he said simply. "You'll catch cold." She hesitated. He stood up and walked past her, returning moments later with a towel. "Here," he said, offering it. "Dry your hair." She took it slowly, eyes narrowed. "This isn't part of my job." "I know," he said. Then he walked away. She dried herself reluctantly, unsure what bothered her more, his kindness or the fact that she didn't hate it. After a few minutes, she continued cleaning, her hair damp and loose. Leon worked silently until she reached the far side of the room. "You hate me now," he said. She paused. "I don't hate you. You're avoiding me. I'm avoiding a situation I didn't ask for." He leaned back in his chair. "You think I planned this?" She turned. "Didn't you?" He exhaled. "No, I didn't expect you. I didn't expect anything." They stared at each other. "You control every part of your life," she said. "Every inch of this building is designed to follow your rules, but I'm not part of your design." "No," he admitted. "You're the part I never accounted for." The tension between them cracked slightly that night. Neither spoke further, but something shifted. Maya no longer avoided his gaze completely. Leon no longer stayed behind his desk. The next evening, she found the kitchenette stocked with fresh vegetables and spices. "I thought you might cook again," he said. She didn't respond, but she did cook. They ate together in near silence, save for the occasional comment about the food. She noticed he picked around the onions. He noticed she didn't touch the bread. The meal ended without incident, but as she gathered the plates, Leon said quietly, "You remind me of someone." She looked up. "Who?" He hesitated. "Someone I knew a long time ago." She didn't press. Later that week, he wasn't there when she arrived. A note sat on the counter. "Board meeting ran late. Help yourself to whatever you need. L." She almost left, but curiosity, or habit, held her back. She walked around the suite slowly, wiping counters, dusting shelves. Then she opened the drawer beneath the window seat. It was filled with keepsakes, not expensive watches or rare memorabilia, just small things. A worn-out keychain shaped like a rabbit, a child's drawing, a faded postcard with no stamp, and tucked beneath it all, a folded piece of fabric. She pulled it out carefully. It was a tiny red coat, child-sized, stitched at the shoulder as if repaired by hand. The fabric was soft but aged. She stared at it for a long moment, her fingers tracing the collar. She knew that coat. She had worn it once, long ago, on the coldest night of her childhood, when she had been lost and alone in the city. A stranger had given her his coat. She had never seen his face, just a silhouette in the snow and a soft voice that said, "You'll be all right now." She never forgot that voice, and now, hearing Leon speak, seeing that coat, she wondered, could it be? He walked in an hour later to find her standing by the window. "I didn't know you'd wait," he said. "I wasn't sure I would either," she replied. Their eyes met. She didn't ask, he didn't explain, but the silence between them was different again, warmer. After that, they fell into a rhythm. She stopped resisting the dinners. He stopped watching her so carefully. They began talking more, about things that had nothing to do with work. He asked about her dreams. She said she wanted to study medicine, veterinary care specifically. He raised a brow. That's oddly specific, she smiled. I like helping things that can't speak. He nodded. I know that feeling. She asked him about his past. He deflected. She didn't push, but she noticed the way his eyes lingered on that little red coat whenever he passed the window seat. They began walking the corridor together after she finished her shift. Just once around. Sometimes they said nothing. Other times they talked about books, movies, why he preferred bitter tea over coffee. One night, as they walked, he said, "Do you ever feel like the world isn't meant for you?" She thought, for a moment. All the time, but I still try to fit. Leon didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Maybe the world should be the one to change." She laughed softly. "Good luck with that." "I'm serious," he replied. "What's the point of building an empire if it still feels empty?" She looked at him. "Is that what yours feels like?" He didn't answer, but she already knew. Later that week, a gala was hosted by Heartwarming. Maya wasn't invited, of course, but her cleaning schedule overlapped with the tail end of the event. She moved quietly through the halls, cleaning up after a dozen rich guests, and found herself pausing outside the ballroom. Leon stood inside, dressed sharply, talking to investors. He looked different there, cold again, controlled, a stranger in a custom tuxedo. She turned to leave, but his eyes found her, and in the middle of a conversation, he walked away, right toward her. "Stay," he said. "I'm working," she replied. "You're more than that." She shook her head. "Not tonight." He nodded, accepting the wall she had placed back between them, but as she turned away, he said softly, "You once told me you wanted to help things that can't speak." She paused. "You helped me." She didn't look back, but her hand trembled as she gripped the cleaning cart. The next day, the little red coat was gone from the drawer, and in its place was a note. "It was you, wasn't it?" Maya stared at the note for a long time. It was just 5 words, scribbled in a style that seemed too rushed to belong to Leon. But it was him. She could feel it. She folded the note and placed it into her bag, saying nothing to anyone. That night, she returned to the suite and worked in silence. Leon was there, but he didn't speak either. Something heavy hung between them, not cold, but fragile, like a thread stretched too tight. Neither mentioned the note. The next morning, the silence broke. Her phone buzzed nonstop as she walked to work. Messages, mentions, calls from numbers she didn't know. Her social media accounts barely used were flooded. Photos, articles, comments. Someone had leaked the story. A blurry headline screamed across every platform. "Mysterious cleaning lady gets special treatment from Hartley. Billionaire CEO's secret girlfriend?" Attached were images from the gala night. Leon walking toward her. Leon talking to her. Leon looking at her in a way no one had ever seen before. The comments were brutal. "She's just after his money, sleeping her way up. He could do better. Homewrecker. Opportunist." She froze in the middle of the sidewalk as the world came crashing down. By the time she reached Heartwarming, the building was buzzing. Whispers followed her through the lobby. The security guards looked away when she passed. Her badge beeped red on the elevator. Denied. She tried again. Still denied. A voice called from the front desk. "Miss Lopez, you've been restricted from upper floors." She stood there, stunned. "Why?" "We were just told this morning, no further access permitted without direct clearance." "I work on the 12th floor." "Not anymore." She didn't argue, just turned and walked out, her heart pounding. That night, she returned home to find 2 men in black suits waiting outside her apartment building. They handed her a plain envelope. Inside was a termination notice, effective immediately. No reason stated, just a signature at the bottom, L. Hartley. She didn't cry, not at first, but when she reached her room, shut the door, and saw her mother's old oxygen machine humming softly in the corner. The tears came in silence. She had trusted him, and he had cut her off without a word. The next morning, she packed a small bag and took a bus to the other side of the city. She walked the streets she had once known as a child, past the shelters and corner stores, until she reached a faded community center with peeling paint. Inside, she found a woman who still remembered her from years ago. "I just need a place to think," Maya said. "You can stay here," the woman said kindly, "for as long as you need." Meanwhile, back at HeartTech, Leon sat in his office reading the same headlines Maya had seen. His face was expressionless, but his hands were clenched. His assistant stood nearby, hesitant. "Sir, do you want to release a statement?" "No. We can deny the rumors." I said no. "But the shareholders—" Leon stood up, cutting him off. "This isn't about shareholders." He walked out without another word, descended 12 floors, and entered the surveillance room. "Pull up all logs," he ordered. "I want to know who accessed internal files, who leaked the photos." The technician stammered. "Sir, there's a lot of data. It might take—" "Now." Within hours, he had the answer. It was someone from PR, someone who wanted leverage, someone who thought ruining Maya would push Leon into a safer, more marketable relationship. The betrayal was swift and surgical. The man was fired by sundown, but the damage was done. Leon stared at his reflection in the glass. The suite felt colder than ever. He didn't call her, didn't write. He told himself it was for her protection. That distance was safer. But every night, he looked at the empty spot near the window seat and felt the loss like a bruise. 1 week passed, then 2. On the 14th day, he opened the drawer and found something he didn't remember leaving there. It was the red coat, folded neatly. With it was a letter. "I was 10 years old. I was lost, cold, scared. You gave me your coat and said I'd be all right. I never forgot. I didn't know it was you until I saw this place. Until I saw the coat again. I thought maybe it meant something, but maybe I was wrong. No name, no return address. But he knew where to find her. The next morning he drove himself, no driver, no guards, to the old community center. He walked through the doors, ignoring the stairs, until he saw her. Maya. She stood up slowly, eyes unreadable. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. "You fired me." "I didn't." She raised her eyebrows. "It wasn't me," he said. "It was someone in PR. I found them. They're gone." "But you didn't stop it," she said. "You let it happen." He paused. "You disappeared." "I was forced out." He stepped closer. "You think I wanted that? You think I let them humiliate you?" "You said nothing," she replied. That said everything. The room was quiet except for the buzz of old lights overhead. "I thought," he said slowly, "if I cut contact, it would protect you. It didn't. I see that now." She turned away. "So why are you here?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because I never forgot the girl in the red coat. Because I let someone else make me believe that protecting my image was more important than telling you the truth." She looked at him. "I don't need you to protect me." "I know," he said, "but I want to stand beside you." Silence stretched. Then she said, "What now?" He stepped forward, close enough to touch. "Come back," he said. "Not to clean, not to work, just come back." "To what?" "To whatever this is," he said. "To whatever it becomes." She didn't answer right away, but she didn't walk away either. Outside, the rain had stopped, and for the first time in days, the sky began to clear. Leon did not expect her answer right away. He just stood there, the sleeves of his expensive coat damp from the rain, his expression finally stripped of control. Maya looked at him for a long time without speaking. Part of her wanted to scream, part of her wanted to cry, Part of her just wanted to believe him. Instead, she said nothing and returned to her room. He waited in the hallway for nearly half an hour, then he left. The next morning, a small envelope appeared under the door of his penthouse suite. No signature, just a short note. "Give me time. I'm not used to being believed in." He read it 3 times before folding it carefully and placing it in his drawer, next to the red coat. Over the next few days, he didn't see her, but she called once, just to ask how his meeting with the board had gone. He answered simply and asked how her mother was feeling. She said stable, for now. Then they fell into silence again. But this time, it felt like a silence full of possibility, not avoidance. A week later, Leon stepped into his private conference room, about to meet with a group of university executives. One of the chairs was already occupied. Maya sat there, dressed neatly but simply, her hair pulled back, her eyes calm. "I called your office," she said as he entered. "Your assistant said you'd be here." He closed the door behind him and approached slowly. "I thought you were still deciding." "I was," she replied. "Then I realized I had already decided. I just needed to admit it." He waited. "I don't want a contract. I don't want a position. I don't want your money." "You never did." "I want honesty, respect, and room to breathe." "You'll have all 3. She stood. He did too. "I'm not the girl in the red coat anymore," she said. "And I'm not the boy who gave it away," he replied. "But I think they'd both like to see what happens next." He smiled, the kind of smile that had never made it to any camera or boardroom. Then he extended his hand. She took it. From that day forward, Maya didn't return to Heart Tech as a cleaner. She returned as herself. Leon told his board the truth, not the full story, but enough to silence rumors. He said his relationship with Maya had never interfered with operations, and that anyone who tried to weaponize it again would be shown the door. No one questioned him. He offered her an education fund, no strings, no conditions. She refused at first, then accepted under one term that she would pay it back over time. He agreed. She began taking night classes in veterinary science, spent her mornings helping at a local clinic, her afternoons studying, and her evenings, sometimes, walking through the 12th floor just to say hello. They didn't rush things. Leon was careful, almost too careful. Maya sometimes teased him about it, but she understood. He had lived too long in glass towers and marble silence. It would take time for him to believe that someone could love him without needing to be bought. One Friday night, months later, he cooked again, not just for her, but for her mother, too. They ate in the suite, seated, on a worn carpet Leon had brought in from his first apartment. Her mother laughed more than Maya had seen in years, and Leon, watching quietly from across the table, looked like he was finally home. Later, as Maya helped him wash the dishes, he said softly, "You're the only part of my life that didn't come from a plan." She handed him a plate. "I'm not here to fit into one." "I know," he said. "That's why it works." She looked at him, his sleeves rolled, his hands covered in soap, his hair a little messy from leaning over the sink. He looked more human than he ever had, and more himself than she ever expected. "You still have the coat?" she asked suddenly. He nodded. "It's in the drawer." "Don't lose it." "I won't." That night, before she left, she found a small box by the door. No ribbon, no tag. Inside was a new red coat, adult-sized, warm, simple, sturdy. She smiled, and she didn't have to ask why. He didn't say the words, not yet. But he didn't need to. Some things didn't need declarations. They just needed to be kept safe. The air was crisp that morning. Sunlight spilled across the city like a quiet promise. Leon stood at the edge of the rooftop garden he rarely used, a cup of black tea cooling in his hands. Behind him, the door slid open. Maya stepped out, wearing the new red coat. He turned, his lips parted slightly, as if he meant to say something then stopped. She walked to his side without a word. They stood there together, watching the city below. Two people who had once collided by accident and now found themselves building something that neither of them had dared to plan for. "Are you still afraid?" she asked, not looking at him. "Every day," he replied, "but not of losing the company, not of failing investors, just of losing this." She turned to face him. "Then, hold on to it." He didn't reply immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a key card. "What's this?" "Your access," he said, "to the 12th floor. No position, no title, just access." She looked at the card, then at him. "I thought we didn't need contracts." "We don't," he said, "but I wanted to be sure you could always find your way back." She smiled, and this time he smiled too. Not the polite corporate curve of the mouth, but something deeper, something real. As they turned back to the skyline, he said quietly, "I ignored the world for 30 years, and then you walked into my life and tore it apart. One towel, one silence, one question at a time." She laughed softly. "So now what?" Leon looked at her, the wind catching the edge of her coat, the red bright against the sky. "Now," he said, "we let the world watch. Love doesn't always knock. Sometimes it breaks the door down, cleans the floor, and leaves behind a red coat to remind you it was real.